Goeiemorgen. That's how to say good morning in Afrikaans. I'm Jake Wessels.
I'm Emily Ellson.
And I'm Whitney Keltner.
And we had the privilege of traveling to South Africa this past January. We have J-term at Luther. So what we did, our trip was called a service learning trip, and so you may or may not know what service learning is, but at its best, it's a sustainable reciprocal relationship between the service giver and the service receiver. And so before we went to South Africa, Martin put together a list of texts and different things that we read to learn about the history of South Africa, to learn about what is service learning and why it's different than other study abroad opportunities. And so one big thing about what we read was the true service charity spectrum. Now I know charity is a nice word and it's things that we hear, but in this spectrum, charity is lacking a few things. It's lacking the emotional attachment. So put yourself in a situation, if you go to church or if there's another time where they've asked, a charity has come, and so you donate money. So you really are thinking, you know, it makes you feel good, but you kind of feel pity. It kind of invokes a pity feeling, like, oh, these people are less than me, so it puts you on a level above them. So it separates you like on a different power level. You're giving them money, and sometimes you're deciding what they need. Like, oh, they are not educated, we need to build them a school. Or they're not educated, we need to give them our American textbooks and things like that. And so that's another way that you separate the power. You're not emotionally invested because you're just giving them money or giving them supplies, oftentimes things that we don't need or old things that we don't have anymore. And then lastly, it's not always sustainable. So you give money one time and then you're kind of done with that. So at its best, true service, and it might not, we discussed a lot, if it even is attainable, true service. So you need to be emotionally invested in the service that you're providing. You know, you have to learn about the community and different things like that. A sustainable commitment, so you're not just giving money once, or you're not just traveling to a country, swooping in as the savior and saying, like, here, these are the things, you know, we're bringing you all these great things because we know what it's like in this, you know, United States, a first world country, and we're going to a third world country and telling you what you need. And lastly, and most importantly, is the reciprocal relationship. Is you go in and you ask, you know, what can we do for you? And even more important, what can they do? You have to ask yourself, what can the country that you're going to or the people that you're helping out, how are they helping you back? What's the reciprocal relationship there? So Martin, our professor, has a unique relationship with a former Cape Town resident. His name is Brendan. And we went to the Elsies River community. We went to a specific area, a suburb of Cape Town. It is a colored community that comes out of the apartheid system when the races were split up into separate neighborhoods. There's much poverty. You can see this is a picture of one of a much more impoverished housing area, sometimes called like a shanty town or a slum area. And so this is what a lot of the houses were in that area. There were nicer ones as well. Because of the lack of education and other things in the area, there's a tendency towards gangs and alcoholism for the kids and for their parents. And due to both of those factors, physical abuse is often seen in the communities.
So throughout our time in South Africa, we worked with an organization founded by Brendan, one of our leaders, called New Hope International. So while we were in South Africa, we ran a day camp called New Hope Summer Camp. We ran it for the kids of the Elsies River community, and we focused on the challenges that these children will be facing throughout their lives or are facing at that time. Every day we focused on a different theme, some of which focused on substance abuse, poverty, gang life, physical abuse, HIV/AIDS, and racism and sexism. We started each day with a Bible verse and a skit. We also did some sort of activity and craft for the children to do. We did a lot of role playing at the camp, so as the leaders we would ask the children if they were put into a situation where someone would ask them to be in a gang or would ask them to do drugs, what they should say and how they don't need to do that, and they have friends that won't be doing that as well, and so how they should sort of respond to those type of people who are trying to make them do those things. Our camp was composed of 5 to 18-year-olds, which we put into groups of 10 to 12 kids. This is Jake's group, the Springboks. He had put it up there. And so we each had a different group to work with, so we really got this connection with these 10 to 12 kids over these 8 days that we worked there. The connections that we made with the children will last a lifetime for us. We also provided them with a meal, which we raised money before we went to South Africa. We all raised money before we went to make sure that the kids got one meal that day, and usually we made the sandwiches before we went to camp at our place we were staying. And for some of these children, it was the only meal that they got that day, so we tried to make sure that it was balanced. We made them sandwiches, we gave them fruit, made sure they had juice, all that kind of stuff. And although the children were great and loving, we struggled each day because of some of the lack of resources the children had. We struggled seeing the children without shoes running on the cement and playing on the dangerous equipment in the neighborhood. And although we were presented with these challenges, the love we felt from the children never faltered. Although we taught them a lot of stuff while we were there, one of the biggest things that we all took away was their love and their ability to dream, and ultimately they ended up being kind of role models for us to look up to, and just being able to hear everything that they wanted to do with their lives was just amazing for us to do.
Despite these lack of resources, one thing that I really admire about the New Hope Foundation is that they really encourage those who they are giving service to give back as well, despite what they may or may not have. So one day, I guess I have a story for you all. We were at a church. We went to a lot of different kinds of church. It was kind of boring to come back to the States and go to regular church again when you're used to singing and dancing and running around. But they were asking the community to donate money to do a feeding in a neighborhood that only has one water pump, no electricity, and 95% AIDS rate was actually what the number was there. So they were going to be going into this community to help out. And they were asking for money, and I was just shocked. These people in the congregation, they were struggling to pay their own bills and feed their own children, yet they were going to be donating money to other people. So this predicament, I said to myself, what can I do for these people here? And I came up with the idea of the garden, and I proposed it to the New Hope Foundation. And within 5 days, we had a garden in the ground. And we planted a lot of veggies that are more expensive for them to get. So it was really good, and I've been getting updates that the veggies are ready to be harvested for their first feeding. So that was just a good example of what can be done there. And also we had a homestay. I had one of the more challenging homestays. I stayed in a 15 by 15 one-room home with 6 other women. And although they didn't have much to give us and they didn't have much room to spare, they were still generous and willing to take us into their home. And it was just a great experience, cramming 3 people in a bed and not having just one running water tap. And it was just a really great experience and something I will never forget. It was definitely trying, and in some of these pictures we had made our host family a meal to show our gratitude and appreciation.
One of the hardest things for us was knowing if what we were doing was actually helping, going back to the True Service charity component. And then we just had a fun video to show you.
Okay, now go.
Add a single ladies, 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 let's